Welcome back to FHIR in 5. Today I'd like to have a look at P for parameters. A lot of what we do when we interact with the FHIR server is we're searching for data based on particular parameters. So I thought it was important just to cover off how we use parameters in querying a FHIR server and what operations we might want to use when we're doing that. So there's a variety of different parameter types that are available within FHIR. There's some common parameters that apply to any resource. Things like last updated is a really good example of that. So we can get, a particular resource where the last updated dates after a certain date. If we want to get newer records after a certain date. There's also resource specific parameters. So if we're looking at a specific resource such as patient, we might want to query it based on the family name of the patient or the given name of the patient. We might also want to get some more information on encounters that are open or in progress, or those that are finished. And when we look at the FHIR resources, it'll tell us the specific parameters that are available within each of those resources. So if we're looking at patient, it'll tell us the ones that are typically available. But we need to have a look at the individual FHIR capability statement for the FHIR server to see what parameters we can use for that server. There's also some search result parameters that we can pass. The underscore summary one can give us a list of fields that FHIR is deemed as summary elements, and they're highlighted in the specification by a sigma symbol, so we can see what elements we might expect there. But there's also other ones that we can get around, including additional resources within the response. We can get a certain number of records returned. So if we're doing things like pagination in our application, we might want to use underscore count just to return a small set of records. I have seen in the past where people use underscore count equal to 0 to get the total number of records that the FHIR server knows about a particular resource. So how many patients are there in the system? But it really depends on the FHIR server's implementation as to whether that particular query will work for you. Underscore total, we can tell the FHIR server what sort of total we want to get back in our bundle, whether we want an exact total or whether we just want an approximation, which might take far less time to get that approximation. So a few different search result parameter types, and then there's some format parameter types. So the ability for us to get the payload back is JSON or XML, we can specify them. When we're using parameters to query our FHIR server, they are delimited by ampersand signs, so we can string them together to form the query that we want to execute against the FHIR server. We can do some things around doing greater than and less than and greater than or equal or not equal kind of operations against each of the individual parameters, and that works really well when we're looking at things like dates and numerics or ranges. We can implement those kinds of queries. There's also a set of modifiers, and the spec talks about modifiers that might be appropriate for certain strings and certain types of values. So you just need to have a look and see how they might relate to what you're trying to query. So we might want to look for situations where there's a patient family name containing Smith. So that would come up with Smithers, Smith, etc., all based on those 4 particular characters. So just some examples there on how you'd query FHIR server. They can get really complex, so we can start to introduce elements across multiple resources. So indicating where encounters might be relating to a patient who is female or male within certain age ranges, etc. We can get quite complex in the way that we query, and ultimately it's up to the capability of the FHIR server as to how those work and how those function for you. Using a tool such as Postman or some other RESTful query tool, we're able to interact with the FHIR server and pass those parameters to get the outcome that you're trying to get. If you're using those dates or the numerics where you want to do some range filtering, you can certainly use that. And don't forget about the modifiers to constrain or control how the querying works.